Welcome back to the 24 Days of Personal Branding Challenge. It's day 15, and today we're going to choose your personal brand fonts. I'll share why you need them, how to pick them, and how to use them. So in the last training, we talked about your personal brand colors. So today we're going to talk about your fonts. And I want to share a couple of updates with you before we get into that. I have a couple of things in the works that I'm pretty excited to share and to start doing. But because of that, I am not going to have as much time to dedicate to the podcast and the lives. So what I'm going to try doing is doing one full lesson like the ones that I've been doing for the 24 days of personal branding a week. And then one lesson or one podcast episode a week will be basically a short recap of it. So I think it might be helpful for you guys, especially if you're super busy, to have a like 5 to 10 minute, really short to the point version of each of these lessons. So that's what I'm going to do. Again, you can sign up on my website. I'll put the link in the description to get all of the replays and the workbook. And if you log in there, I'll also put the links to the full podcast episodes and then the short ones as well. I've been seeing a couple of other people doing really short episodes, and I've liked them myself. Especially if it's like you don't have that much time, but you want to accomplish something and listen to something useful. Maybe you're just like walking to your mailbox and have 5-10 minutes, but you don't necessarily have time to sit down and go through a full lesson. That's what these are going to be really useful for. So it's going to help me as far as my scheduling and my time. But then I think it'll also be really useful just to be able to get to the point really quick and be able to figure out if you do need the deeper lesson. If you listen to it and you're like, oh, I'm all set on whatever that day's lesson training was. So once a week, I'm going to be doing that. And then because we already have 14 days that I don't have the short episodes for, I'll probably do those after I finish the 24 days as their own ones. But there's a chance that I'll pause the 24 days and then start doing the previous shorter ones if I get super busy. So, but for now, I'm going to continue doing one full day lesson a week and then one recap related to the last lesson. So today is a full lesson where you can watch the full replay and get the full workbook inside of the freebie. You just need to sign up with your email and your name, and you will get all the replays and all the workbooks. And like I said, you'll also get the links to the shorter podcast episodes because I'm not going to go live for those. I'm just going to upload them to the podcast on probably Thursdays. I'll probably do the main training on Tuesdays and then the short one on Thursdays. So let's get into choosing your fonts. So what is a personal brand font? A brand font is a specified typeface that is a part of your visual brand identity. Normally, you'll have 3 brand fonts, which include your header, subheader, and body. You can also have an occasionally used font or a font for a specific offer, service, or product. Since we're talking about your personal brand font, these are the fonts you'll use across your personal website, social media, and anywhere else you use a font, such as business cards, if you have a book, if you make banners, billboards, if you have any physical products, anything like that. Anywhere you're going to use a font, these are the ones you're going to stick to. This will help you have a consistent look and further position you as an authority in your industry. Okay. So why do you need to choose fonts and be consistent with those fonts. It's basically the same 3 reasons as why you need to choose your personal brand colors and be consistent with those as well. Number 1 is to be memorable, easily identifiable. It helps your personal brand be more recognizable, right? Number 2 is to position yourself as a leader. When you're consistent with your branding, which includes your fonts, it just positions you at a different level than someone who has all different fonts, right? And then the third thing is you're able to then be strategic about the image and the feelings you want to evoke, the people you want to attract, just by using the fonts that make sense for your overarching personal brand, what you're trying to go for. There's a couple of tips that I want to share with you, and then we'll get into how to pick your fonts, how I recommend doing that, how you can do it, and then how to actually use those. So a couple of tips. You're going to want to choose fonts that are easy to read. Now, I said before, you're going to have a header, a subheader, a header font, a subheader font, a body font, and then an optional occasional font or a font that you use for certain offers or products. So because your header font and your subheader font are usually larger, those don't have to be as easy to read, but especially for your body font, you're going to want it to be something that's really easy to read. Just because there's not really a point of putting all this time into content and then no one can read it, right? It looks pretty, but no one knows what it says. So the second tip is to choose a font that aligns with the rest of your personal brand. I'm going to walk you through how to do that after this section. And you also want to choose a font that's versatile that you can use across multiple platforms. So when you're thinking about what you're going to use, think about all the different places that you're going to have text. So you're going to want something that works on, let's say you have a website, you want to use the same font across the entire website. If you do social media graphics, you're going to want to use the same font on those. But then let's say you also have a t-shirt. You're going to want to use the same fonts on the t-shirt. So if your font is something that just doesn't work on clothing, you're probably going to want to pick something else, right? Or let's say you do billboard marketing. You're going to want something that works for that. Or if you do videos and you put captions or words on them, you're going to want something that looks good with that. So when you're trying out different fonts, and I'll get more into this in a little bit, you're going to want to think about those different mediums, but then if you can actually either create it in that font before you commit to it. So like if you do t-shirts, you might get a sample of the shirt with that font or a couple different fonts that you're considering. So then you can actually see, does it work for all the different platforms and mediums that I'm thinking about being on or currently on and need to update to be more strategic about using the same font or fonts, right? And then the last tip is to use a font that's unique and memorable. So there's a couple of fonts that we can all know, like Disney's font, that's very memorable, right? It's very different and unique and it stands out. So a lot of times I see people use the same fonts, and I think that might just be because they don't actually have a font that they've chosen, and they're either just copying what they see from someone else, or it's something that's on a Canva graphic and they're just leaving the font as is. You don't want to do that, right? You want to really portray yourself as a leader and an actual personal brand, a business. And one of the ways you do that is by choosing fonts and sticking to them that are different from everyone else's. So how do you actually choose those personal brand fonts? So you're going to want to pull your previous work from day 8 of the 24 days personal branding challenge, or episode 101. That's where you created your Pinterest board. And you're going to look over your Pinterest board and see if there were any fonts that you included. And I recommended that you did put fonts on there, so you should have them on there. If you can click into each of those and then just write down what the font is and how you would describe it. If you would describe it as feminine, or it's kind of cursive-y, or it's bubble letter like, just so that when it's just written on paper, you can kind of get an idea of what that was. You can also try to write in that font and make it look kind of similar to it if you can. Another option is you can do this inside a Canvas, so then you can actually have the actual fonts and be able to look at them all and see all the actual fonts. So once you've written down all of the fonts from your Pinterest board, you're now going to pull what you have from the lesson day 9, which is episode 102, and that's about your vibe, your voice, and your emojis. So we referenced this in the last lesson too, which was day 14, episode 107, your personal brand colors. So if you pull the brand color one, or if you haven't done that one yet, pull the vibe and voice one, so that you can write down the vibes and voice that you have from that training. If you did the personal brand colors one, you can also list any colors that you have as well. And you can already see the psychology between the two and see if there's any fonts that make sense just based on that. Once we pull everything, I'm going to show you how to figure out what fonts go with different emotions or vibes and that kind of thing. So you're going to want to have that listed out. But like I said, if you did the personal brand colors one, you're already going to have it in a clean list. The next thing you're going to want to pull is what you have for who your audience is, or your ideal customer or client. That's going to be from day 12, episode 105. And I want you to just list fonts that you think your person would be drawn to. One way you can do this is look at the different stores and brands and events or podcasts that your person listens to, or books that they like, and look at the fonts that those different things use, because they're already attracted to that company or that brand or that event or whatever it is. So that'll kind of give you an idea of the type of fonts that make the most sense. Hopefully you guys don't hear a really loud beeping. We live in a new construction. Like all the houses are new here, so they're still building the houses around us. So hopefully that's not too annoying for everyone. Okay. So once you've pulled all of that, I want you to figure out what fonts go with the vibe, the voice, and the people that you listed. So I found a couple of different graphics, which I'll put inside of the workbook, and I'll link to the page, the website that I found that was really helpful. But basically different fonts, just like different colors, invoke different emotions and feelings and vibes. So let me see. Okay. Looking for one of the ones that was really helpful. Okay. So I'm going to put a link to all these, and then there's multiple different things that they break this up into. I look like I'm glitching, so I hope that I'm not from your guys' end. Let me know if this video is super glitchy. But hopefully not. Okay, so it breaks up the fonts into different feelings and vibes, like I said. So serif fonts, letters with short lines coming off the edges, viewed as more formal and traditional. Best suited for print. So some examples of those would be Times New Roman. That might be considered a warm font. Cambria might be considered more of a beautiful font if you're a beauty brand. Georgia is more of a expensive brand. It kind of gives the expensive vibe. And then there's another font category called sans serif fonts, and those are letters without serifs, viewed as informal and playful, best suited for digital. So they have a couple of different fonts in that list if you want your brand to look young or cool or rugged or inexpensive. And then script fonts or more feminine, relaxed, delicate, happy. Decorative fonts, those fonts that are kind of funky and different, are more joyful or foreign. You'll see them in a lot of like Asian restaurants or things geared towards kids will use those types of fonts. And then slab serif fonts. So those have strokes like those of sand faces, but without bold. Rectangle shoes stuck on the end. So the one with the little caps on the end of the letters. So that could be more of a strong, solid, bold kind of brand. There's also modern fonts. So these are a type of design more geometric and sharp and virtualistic. So that would be like Futura, Century Gothic, Courier New, probably saying that wrong. And those fonts are more, look kind of on the tech side, like they're progressive, those types of things. So you can see, you can look through this whole website and they give you a lot of different ideas, but it can help you start to brainstorm what makes sense for you and your brand based on those values and those vibes and who you're trying to attract. On here, they also have a couple of different examples, like I talked about Disney, and it says that their font is fun and pleasing, the most recognizable and boldest logo in the world. Cadillac with the cursive kind of writing is more elegant and sophisticated. Google, we all know what the Google logo looks like because whenever you go to Google something, it's what pops up, right? It's simple but respectable. Stability and reliability has a calming influence. So, you know, you can always count on Google to figure something out. The LinkedIn logo is professional and it's clean and it's very businessy, which makes sense for their brand. The Hulu logo has a progressive edge that captures the attention of the users. So these are all talking about what they use for their logo. And there's a couple different ways you could go about it. Sometimes you can use one of your fonts, whether that's the header, the subheader, or the body, or the random font as what you're going to use for your logo, which is what I do for my Azalee and PrettyAF. I use the same font that the logo is in for headers sometimes, or for random fonts. So we haven't really talked about creating your logo yet, but this kind of gives you some insight into what you might be thinking about picking, because you might want to be able to use it for that as well. Okay. So once you look at that, once you've written out your answers, and you might have a couple of fonts written down of things you're thinking about using, things that brands that you like their vibe and style, or your customer does, write down those fonts, and you should start seeing similarities. A really easy way to do this is to go into Canva and just look through the different fonts, try out different ones together. So if you create a bigger one for the header, and then the subheader is smaller, and then the body, and play with those different fonts. So I pulled the definitions for header, subheader, and body just so that we're on the same page. Headings are signposts that help you structure. Hold on. I just got logged out. Google is so annoying. All right, hold on. Okay. I don't understand why it does it when you're like in the middle of something. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So headers are signposts that help you structure longer pieces of writing and allow the reader to easily navigate their way around a document. Header is a separate bit of text at the top of a printed page. A header might be the title of the novel you're reading, which is repeated on each page of the book. One kind of header, also known as a page header, is a chapter title, which is often printed at the top of every page. So depending on what medium you're using this in, it could be the biggest thing at the top of your newsletter. It could be the biggest thing on a social media graphic. It could be the biggest thing on a billboard or on a banner image that you're creating. So it's basically your header, and that font that you choose for that is going to be the biggest one that is basically the title or the key point, the thing you definitely want people to read, right? So it should be very easy to read. But also know that this is usually larger. So you can play more with fonts because you know they're going to be larger. So that'll help it be easier to read. Your subheader, a subheading is a mini headline or text that is found under the main headline to give further insight or support for the headline. Headlines are used to entertain, add shock, or hook readers to make them want to know more, but subheadings guide the reader to keep reading or scanning the information. So subheading is the second kind of bigger point. Like it said, you can use your header to grab people's attention, and then your subheader can be more details. I do this a lot with my programs. I'll name the program something, and that'll be in the header font. But then I'll also have a subheader that further explains what the program is and gives more context to it. But again, you'll be using this on all different platforms. So be sure to think about all the different places that you would be using that. Your body is the longest part of an essay or whatever it is that you're writing. This is where you lead the reader through your ideas, elaborating arguments and evidence for your thesis. If you're writing like a paper, your bodies often divided into paragraphs. It can also be bullet points if it's on a brochure or your website. Okay, so basically your body is the biggest part of text, right? So go on a Canva and then pull all the different fonts that you've already listed and see what they actually look like, see what they look like together. And then you're going to choose. So you're going to choose at least 3 fonts, your header, your subheader, your body. And then you can also choose a font that you use occasionally or you use with certain offers or products or things like that. Make sure that they all go together and really represent the vibe, the personal brand, everything that you're going for. You can also ask people like, what do you think of these fonts? Do you think that they align with this type of business, or what kind of company do you think these would be for? Those types of things. So once you have them and you've written them down, what do you actually do with them? So you basically do the same thing that you've done with your brand colors, and that is add them to any templates that you use. So you use Canva, you're going to add it to your brand kit on there. If you have a website, you're going to add it to where you can choose what fonts your entire website is in. You have a newsletter, you can do the same thing. Either put it in a one of the templates that you use, or if you can choose the fonts that it automatically uses, depending on the platform that you use, you can do that there. You'll also want to use it in any digital marketing. So like I said, your website, social media, emails, just be consistent with it now that it's inside your brand guides, that you consistently use those and get people used to seeing those brands associate or those fonts associated with your personal brand. And then for your physical marketing or branding, you can use it on your business cards if you have any type of physical thing that you give to people. So that could be like pens or buttons or pop sockets. If you have banners or flyers, you're going to do billboards, t-shirts, anything basically at all coming from you should be in your brand fonts and your brand colors. So that is everything for your personal brand fonts. Hopefully you have those at the end of this, you'll have them figured out, and then just consistently use them across everything to even better position you as a leader in your industry. If you have any questions, just comment below the video inside my actual website so that all of the questions and answers can be in one place for everyone else to be able to see. And that is all I have for today. Like I said, the next episode will be a recap of this one, a short mini version. So if you want to ever be able to go back and just get a refresher, or you skipped around through this episode, you'll be able to use that one there. All right, that's all I have. I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next one.